think it's on you.
Yeah, I guess we're all waiting for me to start. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Definitely some hardcore people coming at the end of the day for this. It's definitely going to be an exciting panel. Obviously, we know all the rage in the last couple of years with NFTs, and crypto is not perfectly safe. I think it works automatically. It's not the safest world, right? It's not the most secure. There's hacks all the time, a lot of malicious acts and things like that. And with the rise in digital ownership of assets, there's definitely a growing need to secure these digital assets, whether they're NFTs or tokens, whatever it may be. So first of all, I'm excited to be joined by Vijay and Austin. I'll let them give a little intro about themselves. My name is Oren Landberg, head of marketing at Monkey League, first AAA game to launch on Solana. Please.
Can you hear me? Yes, perfect. Cool. So yeah, I'm Vijay, living in Munich for the last decade or so. Munich, the city of Oktoberfest. Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of bitsCrunch. We are the NFT ecosystem guardians. So we call ourselves the ecosystem guardians. The reason being, we have spotted a lot of wash trading on NFTs, and also we give the price value estimation for NFTs as well. So just to keep it short, we would like to be the tick mark of NFTs in the near future. So yeah.
Great. Hi, I'm Austin Federa. I run communications for Solana Labs and work on a bunch of our strategy work there. I'm a founding advisor for Metaplex, which is the NFT token standard and protocol that runs pretty much all of the NFTs on the Solana blockchain as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll kick it off. And I know that essentially the topic is securing NFTs with artificial intelligence. And there's definitely a lot of tidbits there, but we'll kind of take a step back because there's really a broad spectrum of things going on and actors and things. So we'll talk a little bit more broadly about securing NFTs in general and the different types of ways to do that. And I guess I'll start things off with Austin understanding how you see Solana's role in securing NFTs.
Yeah, so when you're looking at base level infrastructure of a layer 1, which is what Solana is, its function is to provide a stable runtime environment for whatever happens to be running on top of it. And in the case of NFTs, they're not a protocol level token spec, right? So if on Solana, if you look at Ethereum, right, you have the 721s and 14 somethings. They are protocol level implementations of that. So what you're looking at when you look at Solana is the token spec is actually maintained by a DAO, which is the Metaplex DAO, and that's updated periodically over time. But it's not like it's hard coded forever as a spec. That can be modified based on community consensus. You don't have to go through the process of sort of reissuing something else. There's multiple versions of it. But the core function there is that it's a protocol. It's an application level implementation of a spec, and that means that it's a lot more flexible and can grow over the long term. The role of Solana in this is actually pretty small, right? There's no difference from a network level between an NFT on Solana and any other SPL token that's running on it. In fact, NFTs are actually specially defined SPL tokens as opposed to being which is sort of like saying, imagine if ERCs on ERC20 on Ethereum also supported NFT spec, and it was just a different metadata implementation that would be the difference there. So that means there's some really interesting advantages to building things that way. The first is that they're inherently interoperable. A wallet doesn't have to understand what an NFT is versus an SPL token. Now, of course, to render it, it does, but to hold it, you're not looking at any sort of additional support needed to make that possible. On top of that, it means that the way this is all built by something like Metaplex, it can be really quick in responding to community needs. So there's this whole concept on Solana of program reusability. So when you deploy an NFT on Ethereum, you're paying the cost of deploying your own mint contract, and then you're also paying to deploy the data on top of that. And that's the model that almost every NFT platform uses on most other blockchains. If you look at something like the NFTs on Polygon or Avalanche, they're basically just a copy of that original Ethereum spec. With Metaplex, they built something totally new thinking from the ground up, like what are the ways that you can take the NFT spec and you can extend it into new areas. So for example, creator royalties are hard-coded into the NFT if you want to mint it that way. So if the transaction is executed on chain, you know, let's say that I sell you an NFT for, you know, 10 SOL, and there's royalties built into that, the on-chain program that we use to transfer that back and forth is automatically going to execute those royalties and have them be sent over if it went through an auction or a listing sale or something like that. You also don't have to pay to deploy the contract. There's a read-only contract on the blockchain, which is upgraded and maintained by Metaplex. There's multiple versions of it that can be used with program upgradability. But I'm basically just, as a user or a creator, I'm sending a bunch of data to this contract. And this contract is outputting an NFT that I'm then signing for, which is very similar to the way that you'd do you know, a transaction with Uniswap or something like that, right? I'm not deploying my own copy of Uniswap to do a swap. I'm simply sending data to the program with an instruction set and getting an outcome that comes out of that. There's some really good things about that, and there's also some areas where you do see a little bit more, I wouldn't call them security like risks, but people can sort of self-rug in a way that they can't in a lot of other areas. A great example of this is the Degenerate Ape Academy, which is the first successful like big project on Solana from an NFT perspective. It was a 10,000 unit drop. It launched in, I want to say it was August 23rd of 2021, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And they totally screwed up their initial mint. They minted 700 as open editions they weren't signed by the creator. They actually had the images were all broken. They were a total mess. And so like, you know, a bunch of us like had to step in and we're like, all right, Monolith, the founder and the artist, like, let's get your tech in order. And it was the project almost died right there. The community was like, this is a scam. Everything's falling apart. I bought this like ape and I got no images on it. People had duplicates because they hadn't done like proper metadata verification on their fields, like tons and tons of problems. They were able to recover, and now I think it's the third highest market cap NFT project on Solana, and they've gotten a bunch of offshoot projects, and it's kind of a great story of the community coming together back around something they thought was like objectively a scam when it launched. But that kind of speaks to there's more fields to check when you're buying an NFT, and there's more fields that creators have to work with to you know, with more flexibility comes more responsibility and more places to mess something up as well.
That's true. There's definitely a lot of you know, different components and players involved when it comes to securing NFTs. You have the creator, you have the buyer, you have the marketplace, you have the chain, right? So there's a lot of different components involved. Vijay, what do you see as the vulnerabilities out there in securing NFTs, and what can be done about it?
Yeah. Like you said, there are multiple dependencies for every single NFTs out there. So be it community, be it the creators, artists, collectors, even the chains has responsibilities, right? So right now, if you look at what we do, we have secured NFTs that are on Ethereum and Polygon, and we are trying to move towards Solana up next, and also Binance and other chains. Mm-hmm. So what we see in this space is a lot of rugs also happen, and that is where people need to step in and put more thought into this, right? They need to see if the project is legit, if the project is the project's founders are legit, they have a profile to where you could see them, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of anonymities out there, and people, they just fall as a prey, and then people just come in with a lot of bags, take a lot of cash and just run away. Yeah. Runaways, right? So yes, but the space is niche. It's very new, and I still see the NFT traction on Solana, for instance, is huge, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same with other chains that are catching up, right? Let's say Avalanche or Algorand. It's still trying to catch up, right? Yeah. So it also depends on what a chain can provide. So like Austin said, Solana is giving a lot of tons of things that is feasible, that makes NFT drops easy for a creator, right? So these are things that is vital when you have to look at each and every NFT projects out there.
Yeah, and I guess like when you think about it too, when you start to bridge between networks, and you know, say someone is purchasing a Solana-based NFT on Ethereum or things like that, when you start to add further complexities and layers, does that make it more difficult to secure NFTs, Mr. Federer?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's even worse than that, right? So one of the really interesting things about NFT spec that most people don't realize, this is true in Ethereum too, there's no reason it has to be non-fungible forever, right? Like, non-fungible doesn't mean nothing can change about the NFT. It means the token is unique. So you don't often see updates to NFTs on Ethereum because just the transaction fees are quite high for something like that. But, you know, the DJ and Ape Academy is another great example. They had this whole crazy system where basically you could breed apes and you get eggs, right? Because, of course, apes will lay eggs in the metaverse. As we all know. But those eggs, they'll hatch, right? So they've been updating the image file every few days to add a few more cracks in it. Like, the eggs are actually hatching. And the reason they're able to do this is because there are certain parts of the NFT data field that the creator hasn't closed. They've left them open, and they've said that as long as my creator wallet is signing this transaction, I can push an update to what that image data is. In the case of Solana, it actually supports anything. You can use IPFS if you wanted to, but most people use Arweave because Arweave is a really awesome storage-based blockchain that's built for permanent storage. So you pay once, and your data cost is higher, but it includes basically the fees to cover your data for perpetuity. It basically builds a data endowment for us. You don't have to pay every year to keep that image file on the blockchain. But what that means is they can keep updating these things like again and again and again. Now, if you've bridged the NFT over, right, and suddenly the creator is signing an update to the NFT that's attached to, like, let's say, Wormhole, what do you do? Like, does the Wormhole is not going to pay the gas fee to update the image for the thing you've now moved over to Ethereum? So the bridging component is tricky, I would say, for things like NFTs that might be used in gaming or collections that are meant to evolve over time. For something like a one of one or a really high value collection that is meant to be like a Bored Ape or something like that, that can be a really good use for that. But no one has even begun to solve the idea of, like, which is kind of an interesting off-chain monitoring solution place. Is my bridged NFT, is the bridged version still reflective of the original version, right? You could see an example we were using NFTs for identity or subscription. So if I don't pay my, you can airdrop an NFT into someone's wallet and you can transfer lock it. That's trivial to do. Maybe that says, I have purchased access to use a specific dApp. And then at some point, that access to use that dApp expires. The NFT is updated to say, like, you didn't pay your yearly subscription to use this dApp, and we're going to turn your NFT off and make it invalid. Well, if you've bridged that NFT over to Ethereum, like, is that subscription provider now responsible for paying the gas fees to update it on another network? No one knows.
Yeah, definitely. And Vijay, like, so getting back to, like, the original topic when we were talking about AI, like, how can number one, how can AI help secure this? Because especially, you mentioned NFTs being updated, and I think the age, or what we're going to see with NFTs is that they will have a lot more utility to them, right? That people will want to update them, like just with the Monkey League, right? So you have the assets that are players in the game. You want to be able to update them, and if you want to sell them on the marketplace and things like that. So there definitely needs to be some kind of a secure environment, whether it's a tool that's helping you do it, or it's just the messaging across. But how do you see AI coming into play with that?
So we have spotted two different problems on this NFT space. One being wash trades. Let me give you an example. So you mint an NFT, you send it to me, and I send it to Austin, and we do a circlic trade. Thereby, we inflate the price of NFTs. This is what some of the crooks are doing in this space. Since the space is pretty new, these guys are manipulating the price of NFTs just for fun, right? And let's say someone from there, they are looking at this piece of NFT and they are thinking that, you are an amazing artist, and then your NFTs are going from $100 to $200, $200 to $500 or $1,000 in a real quick time. So they fall as a prey, and you just sell that, and by doing that, you have inflated the price of NFTs. And the second thing is you also get marketplace rewards. Let's say Rareable or Looks Rare. We all know what Looks Rare did, right? So they give looks tokens or rarity tokens as rewards for frequent sellers and traders. And in this case, are we the real frequent traders? No, right? We just artificially created a bubble saying that, okay, this token has been transferred to A, B, C, and so on. I mean, this is just a small example. But we at bitsCrunch, we have spotted more than 10 plus patterns of wash trading. I mean, wash trading is something that you cannot stop. It happens in Web 1, it happens in Web 2 world, it happens everywhere. But the point is, being a data analytics firm, being a blockchain analytics firm, we are able to see the data patterns at the back. We are able to see which NFT has been traded fairly, which NFTs were traded by malicious actors.
And then what do you do with that data? Yeah.
So we provide to chains, let's say Ethereum, Polygon, Solana, Avax, and so on, right? And NFTs are becoming prominent, right? The craze of NFTs are getting higher than every single day, right? So securing the NFTs or spotting these malicious activities and keeping your NFT collection or your NFT marketplaces clean is going to be one of the trends in the near future. And that is why we have some really solid backers, right? We are backed by, let's say, Coinbase Ventures, who are downstairs, Animoca Brands, Polygon Studios, and Crypto.com Capital, who are now the official sponsors of the FIFA World Cup. So right now, security or these malicious activities are not looked upon seriously, but the world owes bitsCrunch a lot in the next few years. If there is mass NFT adoption in the next few years, then obviously bitsCrunch will also be one of the vital reasons, along with chains like Solana and others who support mass adoption of NFTs, right?
So what can people do now to make sure their NFTs are secure, Austin? Like what can people do other than being safe and doing their research and you know what I mean?
Sure. So, I mean, I guess there's a few pieces to this. The first is like, I don't think wash trading is a problem for anyone who's not trying to make money off NFTs. And that's like a pretty obvious statement to make. Like, if you're in it for the art or the utility it gives you for a game, like, whatever, right? You can buy a $16,000 car and you can buy a $2 million car, and like functionally it's doing the same thing, right? It's getting you from point A to point B. Like, there are more rare items you can get in certain games. You know, it's like Monkey League is an example, right? There are like all of these sorts of things. They're based on some sort of proxy of utility and this idea of what the value is. But like, I don't trade NFTs because I am bad at price prediction. I just buy stuff that I like, right? I have no ability to predict what collections are gonna go up in value or not. I don't really see that as a problem, right? Like, this is the same thing that exists in the fine art market in the real world, especially in modern art, where the pricing is largely based on the tax safe harbors you can create by buying certain valued pieces of art, right? And that's part of the art market in general. So I don't know if the wash trading, you know, from an exchange perspective, sure, if you're rewarding tokens for people who do certain kinds of trading, like, you have to do certain diligence on that. That's the same thing as airdrops, right? When everyone's doing an airdrop, you have to make sure that, like, these people in your Discord are real, these wallets are real, all that sort of thing. They're not just like people who've kind of rushed into it. But you can see like companies like Chainalysis and TRM, the work they were doing wasn't terribly important until we reached a certain threshold, right? And so I think as NFTs go more mainstream, there are going to be users who want to be sure that what they're buying is something that will hold its value. And I think this is kind of like a very classic consumer tech problem. Like, you know, I have a strong rule that like I never buy a product with the idea of a future software upgrade fixing it, because like 90% of the time that future software upgrade never comes. And it's like you gotta make the decision with the thing in front of you. I think like we're gonna have to look at NFTs in very much the same way, right? Because like I imagine some of the price of Monkey League is based on this promise of a game you're delivering. Now, if you guys, let's just say you ran out of money and you had to close down the company.
God forbid.
God forbid. That's not a rug, right? That's just like you did a bad job and the thing failed. So when we're talking about rugs, that's usually someone not actually delivering the NFT as opposed to failing to deliver the roadmap. So there's a few pieces of tooling that Metaplex has built. One of them is called Candy Machine. which is based on the idea of basically getting a token and putting into like a gumdrop machine, right? So it reduces the incentive to jump in really quickly. The way it works is like an open phase, and anyone can come in and they can say like, I would like to buy one of these mint tokens. And let's say the 10,000 drop and 100,000 people come in. There's a raffle system to determine whether you get one of these like whitelist tokens or not. But that system is maybe open for 24 hours, 72 hours, something like that. And so it reduces the incentives of people to just click mint as fast as possible. And that's where you see a lot of the self-rugs going on, right? Where someone's like, oh, there's a link that was posted in the Discord. It's probably legit. And you click it, and then it like steals a bunch of money from you. So the idea there is really to slow down the mint process, to give people time to have good security hygiene, to create a fresh hot wallet, to not use the hot wallet they've got like $100,000 of NFTs in, so that they can go through that process in a more safe fashion. And that's kind of where like securing NFTs now, there's a little bit of a problem where the incentives are to do things really quickly. And when you do things really quickly, you're much more likely to make mistakes.
And I feel like that's like across the whole crypto market. Like everyone wants that instant gratification. They want it now, and that also causes all the projects and the companies to move or try to move at light speed and not be able to keep up with the constant evolutions and things. It's definitely a crazy thing. So I guess part of that is the responsibility lies on projects, on companies, and like we said, there are different components there. So what do you see, Vijay, as like your prediction in terms of what's to come in the NFTs? Or is the process going to get a lot more complex? Is there a lot more projects like yourself that probably will come out to help institutions and help people, end users, secure NFTs, especially as utility rises, value rises, and demand rises as well?
So also to answer Austin's point, we are also building the price estimation for NFTs, right? So that is again using AI. We take more than 40, 50 factors, key performance indicators, in order to arrive at that fair price of NFTs. So we look at what's the artist's previous wallet history. We check for his previous mints, how long that particular NFTs were on sale. What is the average duration that particular NFT was unsold, or so many factors. So we take so much of factors into consideration and we provide those value, right?
So it's like also like verification of the creator itself, which is another important aspect as well, for sure.
Exactly, and the good thing about AI is it keeps learning by itself, right? So even when it is pertaining to wash rate, it automatically detects new patterns, right? And the same with price estimation. So if there is a equivalent NFT, let's say CryptoPunks or Bored Apes, they have special characters like lasers in the eyes, smokes, or classic gadgets, right? Along with those punks. So we keep track of those NFTs and we check for any relevance. If there is anything that is relevant and if it is sold for a certain price, we tag that. And we also check for authenticity. And this is where wash trading comes into picture.
And do you see that actually as like what, an extension on a marketplace, that like just like the rarity tool that people can see that?
Yes. So let's imagine a case where you open Rarible, you see a price that is listed given by the artist, and you could also see a bitsCrunch powered price that could be listed in smaller figures.
Yeah, I guess I'm like a little skeptical that risk assessment works in any financial market, right? Let alone in like an art market. So like we see this already. Like NYSE is a totally different risk assessment model than an international exchange is going to use, and even like the Mercantile Exchange uses a totally different risk assessment model than like collateralized debt obligations used in 2008, right? So like which are one of the things that like crashed the entire world economy for a few years there. So all of these kind of models of risk assessment are like very subjective and very human driven. I think it's hard to argue that the price of something that's going up in part due to wash trading is somehow not a legitimate price, because we do have a captive market with a fixed supply in these situations. And so like the price people are willing to pay is in some ways like the price it's willing to pay. Like I think you see something really funny with like the Ronin Bridge hack, where there were a bunch of people who were like, oh, I saw that a bunch of ETH is now missing from this contract, I'm going to short the corresponding token, and they got totally liquidated because the market didn't operate on fully available information. Wash trading, I mean, it's good to know what portion of an NFT trade is wash trading, but I think ascribing a price index to that based on that kind of activity itself is an editorial decision. And so that is in its own way a form of market manipulation, right? Now, you can argue it's market manipulation for good, but it is providing a counterbalance maybe to wash trading, but it's not neutral in its own construction.
I know the thing is, when you look at wash trading, you also have to look at the good elements of it. Let's say if there are 10,000 punks, 10,000 apes out there, not everything is wash traded, right? There are very few malicious actors who just trade it back and forth, create multiple wallets just to obtain some marketplace rewards. Classic case is Meebits. A lot of people used Meebits to a great extension on marketplaces like LooksRare just to get Looks token. But when we see the data points, we were actually surprised. Not so much of Meebits were wash traded, just very few. So the wallets. So what we do is we got in touch with Rarible. Rarible is one of our customers. We got in through Rarible DAO. I mean, of course, a product like us will not be welcomed by marketplaces because we reveal the real numbers, right? We say what are the good trades, what are the bad trades. So Rarible DAO got us through, and when we sat with them and see the real thing happening at the background, we were surprised that they were handing out Rari tokens to a lot of malicious actors. So with this, we also make sure that the rewards go to the good traders, those who mint good quality NFTs, who trade and spend a lot of time on Rarible, right? So they are missing out on rewards when it matters the most.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say there's definitely some areas where the same way token distribution is something people pay attention to, like the data availability around holding consolidation is not very transparent to users, right? Like it's really hard to go and say, like, of the X number of Bored Apes in existence, how many people are they actually owned by, right? So I think there's very much an application for this stuff on the data availability layer and information sharing layer.
You guys had a good back and forth there, man. It totally makes sense. I mean, the whole essence of crypto is really to be decentralized and to kind of act on pure demand, right? So I can see kind of both sides where, maybe it's perceived as some manipulation and, the price is what the price is. If someone's willing to pay it, they're willing to pay it, and that actually, sets the price, so to speak. So where do you guys see this going? I mean, I feel like we're leaving this where we started off, right? There's a lot more kind of evolutions in the technology, a lot more road that needs to be traveled in order to really let things blossom a little bit more. What do you guys see moving forward?
So AI is like a double-edged sword, right? So we use AI to detect something, and on the other hand, somebody might use AI to involve in malicious activities, right? So I have a strong conviction towards NFTs. Yep. Let's say bills payable could be an NFT in the future. Bills receivable could be an NFT. There are a lot of utilities. There are a lot of applications out there which people are already enjoying, right? I mean, look at the NFT Paris NFT Day yesterday. It was jam-packed, right? The community is getting bigger. Community is getting stronger and stronger every single day. And that tells the world that it has huge potential, but some projects lack clarity. They don't provide that in-depth utility that a project needs, and not just utility, but there are several other factors. Community, you don't create community. Community just gathers, right? They look at the project, they look at the game or whatever it is. They just be there on board and look at things, how things develop, and they enjoy themselves. They immerse into that NFT community, right? Let's look at Monkey League.
Very passionate Monkey Leaguers, that's for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to see like the NFT space moving to be increasingly mobile. Right now, there are wallet apps so you can display NFTs on them. There are no marketplaces that exist on mobile apps, largely because they have to pay a 30% cut to Apple or to Google. So the nice part about these NFT marketplaces, they're all really low margin. right? And this is part of why you can do wash trading on them, is that they're actually not particularly high rent-seeking middlemen. They're fairly low rent-seeking middlemen. But when you start adding in like platform fees that like Apple or Google would charge, you start to get to a situation where that's pretty untenable for an actual marketplace to exist on mobile. It's also very difficult to mint on mobile if anyone's ever tried to do that, right? Even with deep linking between wallet apps and like, it's a mess right now. So I think we're going to see a lot of that evolving into a place where more of the NFT experience moves off of the desktop and off of the Chrome extension and moves into like the devices that largely have the highest quality screens that any of us own, which are usually our phones or sometimes a television, right? And so I think that's going to be a pretty transformative thing when you start to see the ability to create and sign NFTs, and specifically the signing of transactions for NFTs moving onto the phone. You're going to see that moving into AR in a very significant way, and you're going to start seeing like the world. You know, there's a company, Kinomi and OpenEra on Solana. They're doing a bunch of really cool work with actually creating billboards in AR space that are mapped onto the real world. So this is not like a metaverse, right? It's not, but you can actually, you can get their app and you can go to Times Square. I think they're in test flight still, but you can go to Times Square and you can like shine your phone around and you're going to see like all these NFT billboards that are superimposed on the existing billboards in there, right? And so there's a form of like viral graffiti art that like ends up being made possible when you start bringing this stuff into a more mobile world. So I think that's super interesting. I think that's like an area we're going to see more of this coming into in the future. You do get really quickly into fractured realities, which I think is a very interesting concept. And you know, NFTs are already very much a part of that, where like increased signaling from profile pictures on Twitter is like even more powerful than like what cache tags of tokens you have in your Twitter profile, right? Like, I think that's a really interesting place that we're getting into.
And I think it's also like when you think about it and the percentage of the global population that's in crypto and how much more is left. I mean, to think about all the complexities now that we have and all the technologies, like so something like maybe you guys are at the forefront, right? So there's a lot more applications out there. There's a lot more data points. There's a lot more rugs to be pulled and things like that. But
yeah, I do want to say, so the rug pull thing is interesting because if you think about it, for most of human history, defense has been worse than offense, right? The act of defending has been much harder than the act of attacking. That's the story of like most defensive systems, like in military context. For a long time, that was true of software too. But the attack vector was almost entirely the human, right? Like if you think about when a big company gets hacked, the software isn't usually hacked. A person is usually socially engineered that creates some sort of vulnerability that a hacker is able to exploit. Now, you can sort of, yeah, that's technically a software hack, but like if I pick a flash drive up off the ground and I work for a bank and I plug it into my computer, like that's not a software system failure, that's a human failure. And one of the nice things about blockchain is everything on chain is mostly irrelevant to human activity. The places where, like, I think the reason you see more prevalent scams in the NFT space or more prevalent hacking occur in the NFT space is because users are doing more stuff than users are doing in DeFi. And so that's kind of one of those interesting places where I think that some of the best work that can be done around securing NFTs is actually around securing humans. So some of that's like just basic hygiene, like using a ledger, but that's also like wallets getting much better at providing like transaction simulation before the transaction executes. And the ability for a user to know when I click this button, what's going to happen. And they can see this preview output and it's like, oh, it's going to remove all my Solana from my wallet. I probably don't want to click that button, right? And that's kind of the place where securing NFTs is, I think, as much about securing humans as it is about securing the technology.
Totally, I could see that, and I guess that's on the responsibility of the projects to really take ownership of that, for sure. Like, hey, you know, let's plan ahead and things like that. And then it's probably also a combination of, projects that want a very smooth user flow and a smooth UX, so they skip a couple steps and a couple notices and things like that. And I guess when it comes down to it, right, there's always going to be malicious actors. There's always going to be people trying to find loopholes. I mean, even back in the day, in previous life with advertising on Google, like people constantly tried to find loopholes around the ranking system for SEO and things like that. And that's just constantly a battle back and forth. But I guess it's the most important is that there are passionate people like yourselves that are really in it to make the ecosystem safe for everyone, secure, and that's, I guess, the most important, to outnumber the malicious actors. Any last notes before we take some questions?
I mean, we have had some interesting discussions, so let's take some questions. Already, it will be a mic.
Man in the jean jacket.
Hey, thank you. I want to go back to the question about the DAO and the modifiable part of the NFT. So if you put like the voting power in that modifiable part, wouldn't it like kill the decentralization, and wouldn't it be better to put it in a smart contract which couldn't be like modified for that?
So there are some applications where you want data to be modified, right? And there are some applications where you don't. So I think you're basically saying, like, if the voting weight percentage of an NFT can be updated, doesn't that hurt decentralization?
Well, I'm only talking about a DAO example. If we have like a governance related to the voting power of the NFT, in which case can we put it in the modifiable part of the NFT?
So it depends, right? I could see a hypothetical situation where you have a game design where the players who are the best at the game get enhanced voting over people who are worse at the game, right? And in that situation, you actually want the vote power to be modifiable based on the rankings of that player, right? This is the same model as, like, the highest users of a network should have the highest share, the highest say in a network's design. So potentially, right? I think the problem with offloading it into a separate smart contract, I mean, sure, for governance execution, but then you're talking about basically disparate data fields they have to verify in independent places to get a complete snapshot of what the NFT is. It turns into an indexing problem, quite frankly, right? If you've got 100,000 or 1 million drop, and each one of them has a corresponding vote authority or vote power that's stored in a separate smart contract, I mean, sure, but I don't really see an advantage to that as opposed to just minting it into the NFT as an immutable feature.
And apart from advantages, will it be centralized or decentralized in this scenario?
Sorry, I don't fully understand.
Well, if someone could change the NFT and the voting right, it is considered centralized or
so that's as central. That is as centralized or as decentralized as the private keys that control the upgrade authority. So, for example, if my favorite example, Caesar Salad DAO, which is just the hypothetical DAO that runs Caesar salads, decides that, like, they want to issue an NFT project, there is a creator wallet that has to sign that mint. But that creator wallet can be a 150,000 out of 160,000 multisig, hypothetically, right? So it really, like, it is centralized in the sense that there is one smart contract with upgrade authority, but that is true of every single program on a blockchain anyway. So I don't think it's any better or worse than that.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yes. Hello. I would like to come back to wash trading. I'm a victim of this malicious activity, actually. I bought on LuxRare an item, very expensive, and I didn't know that it was delisted. It had been delisted from OpenSea, but I didn't know it because it was verified. So what can I do? I was, lucky to be able to resell it right away because I didn't want to have a piece that I cannot sell one day. I want to keep it, but one day maybe I want to sell it. So that's one issue. The second issue, on the same platform, I bought a fake item. And I didn't know at that time that you had to check out the blue dot to make sure that it's a real collection. So my question to you is, what can I do as an individual when OpenSea never reply to my emails? Because I have had also problems with their flows regarding World of Women, because one of my items was sold at an initial price.
Vijay.
This is what I was telling. So even in this little crowd, there is one victim, right? So that is what we are supporting. That is what we enable Vijay's, Austin's, and every other individuals to decide which NFTs to buy, and most importantly, which not to buy. So we picturize analytics, right? Analytics on top of it. We add some forensics to it. Let's call it that we are, let's say, a chain link or chain analysis for NFT space. So the space is new. The space is very niche, right? So give us some time, and you will see a lot more applications from our side. Right?
Yeah.
And
So-
do your due diligence.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I would say, like, first off, I'm very sorry for that experience. That's not what anyone wants you to experience when you're trying to buy an NFT and join a community. With some of these things, like, that is like a very classically Web 2 problem, right? Like, that is a platform problem. That's not necessarily a blockchain problem, which doesn't make the situation any better for you. But that's a really good example of, like, the Metaplex spec was recently updated to have this idea of an on-chain collection and catalog. And so what that means is that you know, anyone, if it's whether it's OpenSea or whether it's Rarible or if it's an NFT marketplace on Solana, they can connect to the chain and they can say this NFT is verified to be a part of everything else. Now on Ethereum, it's a little bit shakier. There is a little bit more verification that has to be done there, but there's this concept of an on-chain collection. So it doesn't necessarily solve the price manipulation problem, but any marketplace that's listing something that isn't part of that on-chain collection component, they're going to be kicked out of the market pretty quickly because no one's going to trust them.
So just to give you a closing remark, we are building unleashnfts.com, which is similar to CoinMarketCap and market cap for NFTs. I mean, it is not just market cap, and that is why we named it as Unleash NFTs. So we tell you which collections are trending, which like Netflix recommendations, or which collections are affected by these malicious actors, so that you can make a better investment decision.
When will it be?
So the beta version is already out. We have given it to B2B customers. You can expect that for B2C users pretty soon.
Do you have a monkey NFT?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the interesting panels.